Good afternoon, everybody, and welcome to the afternoon sessions of day one of the Culturally Competent Conversations for Equity and Belongingness Summit. Things are going so well on the summit, and this particular presentation, this particular story that you're about to hear, this particular perspective and voice that you're about to hear has been a voice that I literally prayed for and asked for, and I got it thanks to Coach Carolina Armburo, and who got me connected with Gender Guide Chief Wizard person extraordinaire, Tien Neo Eamas.
Yep.
And this is going to be such an amazing presentation. So please comment. I'll be moderating the comments, and we are going to, I promise you're going to have questions or comments or stories of your own to share. So please, this is definitely something that is very engaging and deeply moving. Tien Neo Eamas is going to be talking about transcending gender, the final frontier. And before I read Tien's bio, I officially, with utmost pleasure and honor, welcome Tien to the C3EB Summit platform to share his insights, his lived experiences, his perspective, and his expertise in what he's about to talk about. So hi, Tien.
Hi, thank you. I'm so honored.
Thank you. The honor is truly mine. And for our listeners who are truly clueless so far as to what I'm talking about, I just want to share Tien's bio with you. Born into 1968 Singapore and a fundamentalist Christian family, Tien Neo Eamas was given the gender marker female. For years, he internalized his experience of family violence, sexism, homophobia, racism, and trans and gender phobia. Eventually falling into a major depression, Tien thought suicide was the answer. It was not. The attempt failed. When Tien awoke the next day, he took it as a sign, committed from then on to transform his struggle into something else. The next several years of spiritual and personal development changed his view of life from someone oppressed to someone full of joy who loves life. This transformation gives Tien unique insight and facility when teaching people how to tap into their own capacity for freedom, choice, and connectedness. One of Tien's biggest accomplishments was being the first Asian bi-gendered trans man to transition publicly during a time when LGBTQ awareness was rare, and this was in Vancouver, BC in Canada around 2002. Tien's Transcending Gender curriculum includes Upgrade Your Gender IQ and Gender Conscious Parenting. He also teaches race and spirituality programs and mindfulness programs. And you can find him on his website at tienneoeamas.com. We will put it on the banner towards the end of this session. But without further ado, Tien, the stage is yours. We're ready to be blown away. Take it away.
Fantastic, AJ. Thank you so much. Thank you. So, hello, everybody. I am so pleased to be here. So I'll just add that over a decade ago, I saw that most North American spiritual and or transformative summits were filled with speakers who were white, cisgendered, straight men, and some women. Once in a while, that'd be a Black person or an indigenous person. And it always really frustrated me because the representation was so lacking. And I, called out to the universe and I said, okay, one day I'll be invited. So thank you, AJ and Carolina Aramburo, for inviting me to this really rich palette of speakers and as the gender guide. You have no idea what this means to me. Tick, another dream fulfilled, yeah? I am an affiliate of Gender Guidance and a gender guidance coach representing soulful, radical Results Coaching, Carolina Aramburo's coaching agency. Carolina, who coached me 10 years ago, will be speaking this Friday at 4:45 Eastern Standard Time on gender equity. So make sure you tune into that as it expands on what I'm talking about today. So once again, Carolina and AJ, thank you. And thank you all of you for showing up. So right now, our children are no longer self-identifying as boy or girl. One day, your child, nephew, granddaughter may say, I'm not a girl. Or, don't call me a he. I'm non-binary. Stop making wear these clothes. I don't want to wear them. Stop calling me a daughter. This is humanity evolving right now. If you are unwilling to let go of your personal view of what gender is, your relationship with your child and the younger people in your life will suffer. Your insistence on what they should be will leave them feeling unheard and unloved. Communication will strain, love and connection, will just no longer be possible. Courageous youth who have come out as non-binary or queer end up hating themselves. This is because the adults in their lives disapprove of or don't understand their new gender, their new non-gendered identity. Many end up in psychiatric wards, on drugs, and many have committed suicide. This is the world we're in right now. Through my life experience as a racialized immigrant, trans man of color from an abusive family, I understand how and why this is happening. To me, gender is the final frontier. This new expansion of gender is something that I'm committed to teaching. Hence, my soul chose my unique time, my gender expression, and this body to come into. I was to go through this expression or this experience of oppression and abuse so that I could transform my suffering and I can teach now what I teach. That when we're disconnected from our source, from our light, from our soul, we disconnect from other souls and end up isolating, oppressing, and hurting others. This is the underlying cause of gender-based discrimination. I do not teach from books I've read, and I'm not schooled in academia. I teach from my lived experience and my own connection to source. I'm committed that together as humanity, we transcend gender, and we relate soul to soul. And when we do, we now relate on a whole new plane of love and community. Oppression, discrimination, hatred will cease to exist. Only when we transcend gender, alter the way we relate to gender, go beyond our limited view of what gender is, then we can truly be with, relate to, and be souls, connecting to souls. LGBTQ is now a common word. So here's a brief capture of our evolution in North America. Queers have always been a common part of life, with the non-binary, trans to spirit, intersex, and hermaphrodite people being revered as wise teachers. Then came organized religion that ended many cultures' pagan lifestyles and persecuted and murdered queers. Today, the oppressive religious and other homophobic cis-sexist practices are beginning to be challenged and broken down. In the 70s, 80s, and 90s, the gay and lesbian movement became visible in the mainstream because of AIDS, gay rights, and feminism. With much violence against the community, new laws and human rights codes were established. Same-sex marriages were legalized in Canada in 2005, with the US, well, let's just say you're still working it out. Trans people were not accepted in the lesbian and gay community until the mid-2000s. Aspects of trans were embraced in drag culture as long as they were drag queens, women dragging as, drag queens, men dragging as women, or drag kings, women dragging as men. But if one wanted to transition to another gender, it was a problem. Then, with the continued rise of feminism, trans men finally found voice to choose their genders. A handful of us began our groundbreaking transitions over the new millennia. And the birth of trans men began to shake the binary gendered world. Now, with the mainstreaming of the web, the gay and lesbian movement evolved rapidly into queer, then LGBT, then LGBTQ, and now more and more letters are added to our alphabet soup. So, for example, I am LGBTBIQPOC2S. Now, 2 generations have now been born into a new gender reality. The baby boomers created gay and lesbian awareness. Gen X's pioneered trans men. Zennials expanded trans and queer. Millennials are queer and fluid. And now the 0 to 15-year-olds are simply non-binary. A few years ago, my friend and another Gen X trans said, those are not who we are. Those are a whole different breed of gender. My friend agreed and said, nope, but we gave birth to that. Now we are no longer just gay and lesbian. We are queer. We are NB and trans. Queer First Nations people of this land are two-spirit. We are demi, pan, ace, and more. Other words like cisgendered and heteronormative have also been added to the LGBTQ dictionary. I know I've thrown a whole bunch of words at you for those who are not familiar with it. So just hang in there and swim with me, okay? So for example, NB, non-binary, is one who does not fit in the binary of man, women. Demi is a sexuality, not a gender, where one is sexually attracted to another based on their emotional connection. So do Google LGBTQ definitions for more information. So for example, now I would be a QPOC, queer person of color, bigendered, 2 genders, bisexual, I like both sexes, trans man, I was a female, I was a woman, now I'm a man, who is heterosexual when expressed as a woman. So when I'm expressed as a woman, I like guys. And heterodemi when expressed as a man, which means when I'm expressed as a man, I am attracted to women, but on an emotional basis, and could be then be sexually attracted to them based on the emotional connection. Okay, I know that's a lot for you folks to take in if you're new to this. So just let it sit. Don't worry. Let's leave the history and some definitions and let's just get back to gender, okay? All right, everybody. Think of one person in your life. Now notice that one of the first few things you think about them is their gender. Mother, father, child, partner, lover, co-worker, bestie. Your view of them is based on the fact that you see them as a gender. Mother is woman. Father is man. The genders would be woman, man, boy, girl. Perhaps you have non-binary and trans people in your life, and even that becomes a gendered viewpoint. They are trans. They are a he, him, or he, her, or she, her, a they, a femme-expressed man. When we relate to people through a gendered lens, that is, we see them as man, woman, boy, girl, we make assumptions about who they are. Man means this, and woman means that. Now, feminism did powerful work for 60 years to explode the myth of the limitations of women. So now, let's explode the myth of gender. Consider that man and woman is all a viewpoint, constructed by humans. It is not who you are. Who are you if not defined by gender? Who are you if not man, woman? Do you even know who you are? Who are you if you're not a gender? And who are you if you are soul? Here are some impacts on us when we view each other through the lens of gender. Number one, the impact on trans, non-binary, and queer folk. When we discriminate against those who don't fit the constructed binary of man, woman, gender, we recoil when meeting one. We don't understand and don't acknowledge them. We look away. We pretend they don't exist, and we stare and we mock. We ask invasive, insensitive questions. We try to make them fit in to our existing view of gender and insist that they are the gender we want them to be. We humiliate and treat them less than. We are unkind, abusive, intimidating, hateful, and violent. Folks like myself are denied work, we're humiliated and silenced. We're not represented in summits and conferences, movies, books, ads, and much more. As a result of not being seen and represented, many folks see ourselves as having no value. Our wellness is impacted, relationships with family and friends gets lost. We suffer financial hardship and are socially outcast. Many young people are kicked out of their families and end up living on the streets, on drugs, working the sex trade out of desperation. We're in psychiatric institutions, and many end up killing ourselves. Number two, the impact on children. When we see others through the lens of gender, we do not see soul. This lens is pervasive from the beginning of a child's life. When they're born, the adult declares, "It's a boy," or "It's a girl," gender reveal parties. That is based on the sex organs they have. Once that is decided for them, the child is expected to be that gender. This child is then not free to be who they truly are as a free, joyful spirit. And they are stuck in clothes, in behaviors, and ultimately choices in life that are not theirs. Those who feel misaligned with their forced upon gender, resent their parents, or internalize disbelief and hate themselves. Number three, the impact on personal relationships. We have rules about gender and then judge others about how they should or should not be. Relationships are strained and inauthentic. People cannot be free to be themselves, free of gender, to behave in true honesty. Statements like men are from Mars, women are from Venus, or boys will be boys become a truth and to be lived up to. We limit someone else's potential when we insist they should be a man, woman. Women are not supposed to act like that, or can't you just be more like a man? When we view others through the lens of gender, there's conflict, there's belittling, unrealistic expectations, judgments, and love gets left behind. Number four, the impact on self. We stop knowing ourselves as soul. When you believe that you are your gender, you believe restrictive things like, "Oh, I shouldn't because I'm a woman," or "I'm a divine feminine," or "a divine masculine." Most humans are not at all aware of who they truly are. Women think they have to be feminine, a woman, obliged to dress and act a certain way, unable to simply be free, to just not put that makeup on, always trying to improve their bodies. Men think they have to be masculine, and then they get all insecure about whether they're masculine enough or toxically masculine. They take extra testosterone and steroids to build muscle and mass. And they try to be tough and strong and brave and all that stuff. Humans ultimately don't love and honor themselves and their bodies. This leads to excessive body sculpting and cosmetic surgeries, obsessive dieting and food fads, over working out or over yogaing or over Pilates, addictive behaviors, self-hatred. And why? Because humans believe they're a man or woman, with all the restrictiveness that those boxes come with. So if we are soul, we can simply be free to be whatever we choose, however we choose. We are free to experience and to express what is eternally possible for ourselves. Hashtag be you, hashtag be me, hashtag be soul. 5, the impact on sexuality. Rampant sexism, abuse, and ridiculous sexual expectations occur because we view each other through the lens of gender. Women are expected to be feminine, submissive, or retaliate and become overtly sexual, manipulative, and derogatory. Men are expected to be masculine and their sexuality dominating, controlling, toxic, and insensitive. Or people in general shut down. Conventional gender norms continue right now to be dismantled. So join me on Friday to attend Carolina Aramburo speak on gender equity. She goes on at 4:45 Eastern Standard Time. And she says that this is not the average gender talk. So I'm totally very looking forward to that. So join me on that this Friday. So I just gave you the 5 impacts of what happens when we view each other through the lens of gender. So here are 3 steps to immediately implement to transcend gender. If you want that source of space and freedom and be you, be me, all that good stuff, we have to transcend gender to start knowing ourselves as soul. So the 3 steps would be, number 1, end discrimination towards trans and gender non-conforming folks. Number 2, relate to soul. And number 3, get really curious about your own gender. That one will be fun. Number 1, end discrimination towards trans and gender non-conforming people. Discrimination comes out of fear. When we react with fear, we shut out all new expansive opportunities, and we perpetuate righteousness and judgment. This often leads to retaliation with violence and judgment, perpetuating a vicious cycle of blame and hatred. Now, for 20 years, I perpetuated this cycle towards tons of others. Why? Because I was on the receiving end of other people's fear. Discrimination and hatred only begets more discrimination and hatred. Number 2, relate to soul. Be willing to set aside all opinions and thoughts, preconceived notions of who people are. That includes especially your view of what gender they are. Be present, listen, be willing to hear, to see them, to look at them in the eyes and actually pay attention to what they say. Just be there, be with them, share the space. This is what being inclusive actually is. Number 3, now get real curious about your own gender. Recognize that your gender that you were assigned to is not who you are. It is a set of constraints and beliefs that you at birth were given a choice but to accept. Perhaps that gender assignment is inaccurate. Perhaps you have many expressions, or perhaps you really just don't care. Ask yourself, who am I if I'm not man, woman? So how do we practice inclusivity, relating soul to soul? Being present is a fundamental skill that we can apply to all areas of our life. Relating to soul simply means being fully present with somebody in front of you. This is a basic Buddhist mindfulness practice. So when you meet somebody, notice that your brain is just going to automatically think all sorts of things about them. What gender, good or bad looking, what race assumptions you have about them, etc. Just notice that your brain is busy thinking thoughts. Then say, thought. Then come back to seeing that person in front of you. Now, your thoughts are influenced by your family, your assumed gender, race, class, background, location, all sorts of things. Our thoughts are filters that we look at the world through. And until we can fully separate who we truly are from our thoughts, most of us behave and act as though our thoughts are the truth. You see an Asian, oh, they're Asian, oh, they must be rich. Or, I'm a woman. I should be much sexier than that. Here are 4 steps to relating soul to soul. Number 1, notice your thoughts. Acknowledge you have thoughts, set them aside, and breathe. Listen to the person in front of you. Really listen to what they say. Are you listening to me? Or are you thinking thoughts right now? Look into their eyes. Be with them. Look at them. Breathe with them. Number 4, there is nothing else that's going on except you looking, being, and talking with another being. All the thoughts that are thinking in your head right now, whether about yourself, whether about them, what about anything else you're distracted about, those are just thoughts. They're not real. What's actually real is your being with another human being in front of you. I am being right now with you. Now, there may be hundreds of you there, and I may not be able to see you with my eyes, but because there's nothing else going on in my brain, I can be fully present and be with you. Now that I've established the practice of being with soul, here are a few other points to address before we can take on relating on a soul level with trans and non-binary folks. Now, the declaration of pronouns is now becoming more mainstream. Requesting for a pronoun when we greet others is also part of this practice. I acknowledge its value in culture now, and it has people be seen for the gender they choose. So commonly, people assume the gender of another person based on their gendered lens, and then they treat them accordingly. So if I appear female, one would assume I'm a woman, a she. If I appeared like a male, one would assume I'm a man, a he. Now, as gender evolution continues, people are beginning to get that sex is no longer a definition for gender, aka your sex organs does not define your gender. So now we practice the asking for pronouns. So I'm going to be really, really honest here, because as much as I appreciate this evolution, as it's giving voice to thousands who have been denied voice, myself included, for over a decade, there are a few aspects of this practice that I'm uncomfortable with. So I'm just going to go through them. Look at it. English is a Latin-based language, and Latin-based languages are genderized. Therefore, he, she pronouns are immediately indicative of a gender. Chinese is not genderized, for example. In spoken Chinese, our pronouns are ta. In Turkish, the pronoun o is also not genderized. Something very powerful happens in language. Realities are created and reinforced through language. So once I was hanging fabric in Richmond, a highly Chinese populated suburb outside of Vancouver, BC. That's where I live. And that was, and I was at that point 2 years into my transition, and I was presenting very non-binary. And at that point, 2004, trans and non-binary was not at all visible in North America. So my client introduces me to her friend. And we all are speaking in Chinese. My client says, using ta as a pronoun. 这个是他，他是我的心内世界是。This is Tien. Ta is my interior designer. Her friend looks confused and is now in her head, in her thoughts. She is not present with me. My client continues. Ta just finished the color schemes. Ta just got the millwork and the shelving done. And the friend begins to relax, looks at me in the eyes, and talks to Tien, the ungendered Ta. Soul connects to soul. This interaction just took place in a couple minutes. And I realized that gender exists in language. This soul bypassed all that unnecessary gender confusion and became present with me because we used ta to refer to me as we normally would everybody else. Gender was not present in our conversation because a genderized pronoun was not used. Another example of the power of pronouns in language. I was with friends once and they said, why is it when Uncle Tien shows up, our kid speaks and behaves in ways that we don't ever see them do? And I say it's because I do not use she, nor do I see your child as a girl. I see them as soul, and I speak of and to them as soul, not a gender. Because of this clear, limitless space that I treat and view them in, they are free to be much more than girl. Therefore, they behave in whole new ways they wouldn't normally. Because when you speak of and treat them as girl, they can only be girl. So when our society started asking for pronouns about 2 years ago, I have to put aside my knowing that this is the constraint that we continue to perpetuate because in North America, we speak in English. Now, English is evolving to be more inclusive at this very point. And it really, still seems backward and unevolved for me. It's kind of like asking for pronouns. We continue to attach gender to each other. And with this, we will dictate how we relate to each other through this lens of gender. What's happening is we acknowledge gender is a choice now, but are now still relating from this restrictive lens of who we think this person should be. I do get the value of this act, okay? It is at this point, does serve to empower the thousands whom, like myself, 15 years ago, did not get seen or acknowledged because of discrimination. We get to choose now what gender we are, and then we have others see me as the gender that I say I am. This in itself is a powerful act of declaration, and I put aside my discomfort and opinions, and I honor, embrace this process of evolution, the process of declaring pronouns for as long as us humans need to do so that all can feel more seen, represented, and included. Being more related and connected to soul with LGBT, trans, non-binary folks is the first stage to ending this discrimination. There is space for the pronoun question. And yes, so go ahead and ask. If you need to ask. Check and see, though, if you need to ask, that you are not just asking people who are visibly gender non-conforming or trans. Ask everybody. That actually creates the culture and awareness that gender is a choice. It also has you check your assumptions. We educate ourselves and others in the process, which adds to inclusivity, builds connection, and breaks down the discrimination. Now, do keep in mind that pronouns are only necessary when there is a third person, a third party involved. When simply talking to one person, you never need to know what pronoun they use, right? If you do notice that you're wanting to know what pronoun they use, then notice that you are not being present. And you are once again in your thoughts and filters about who this soul in front of you is. It's a fun little catch about this pronoun game. So I'm a pole sport dancer, and I am probably the only trans guy in my training facility. I recently saw a new non-binary person in class, and I was really surprised because at this level that I'm at, we've been training together for a couple years, so everybody knows each other. And this new person was quiet and nobody went to speak to them. And they occurred uncomfortable. So I went up to them. I said, "Hey, how you doing? You're new. I've never seen you here before. What's your name?" And so we exchanged names and we chat. And at some point, I'm like, "Okay, it's time to go. So, awesome meeting you. And see you around, okay?" That person beamed and smiled at me. And I knew in that moment, love and connection happened. Soul connected with soul. And no, I did not at all ask for their pronouns. I hope you got the point of that example, right? Take it on, okay? Because this asking of pronouns does provide acknowledgement and visibility, but there is honestly a much simpler way of being connected, and that is to simply be present. When we are willing and able to shift our existing beliefs and the paradigms of what gender is, we can then be free. We can then be soul, both individually and as a connected humanity. Gender discrimination, sexist discrimination against women, violence, suicides will no longer need to exist when we do our work. So intimate relationships can explode to whole new levels of deeper connection. Families and children can connect and love can be present. Our own relationship to our bodies will heighten, and our knowing of ourselves, self-love and honor will transform. The journey to this wonderful space of expanded free souls will take our willingness, our commitment, and of course, our being in action to this new world. So don't worry, the new 0 to 15-year-olds, they got it. They will lead this growth. In about 50 years, and probably less, their new expression, their new non-defined by gender human will be the norm. Or at least gender will simply be their choice in how they express themselves. They will not be a gender and identity. They will be free to choose gender as an expression. So just like in every single evolutionary stage in time, the older pervasive culture of the generations before just have to die out so that the new generation can now flourish. So we can all do the work right now and then be much more related, much more connected and loving and embracing of our families, our people, and all of humanity. And the younger generations don't have to fight us so much. They don't have to suffer. They don't have to be so abused and so killed off so much by our discrimination and our restrictive beliefs of gender. Or they can just wait for us to die out. Either way, they are coming, my friends. The new human being is already here. They are already born, and they are not a gender. So let's all do the work, expand so that we can now actually enjoy the time that we have with our younger people in our lives and actually get to know the souls around you for who each other truly is. So humanity is evolving right now and fast. So take action now. Number 1, end discrimination of trans and NB folk. Number 2, relate soul to soul with everybody. Number 3, get very curious about your gender. And then be proud that you get to contribute to the new humanity that is coming, that is already here, of love, the new humanity of equity and belongingness is the new humankind. I am an affiliate gender guidance coach representing Soulful Radical Results Coaching to expand yourself and your family to dismantle genderized systems. Do contact me. And also make sure you check out this Friday, 4:45 p.m. Eastern Standard Time for Carolina Aramburo's keynote presentation on gender equity. So thank you so much for showing up. And now go forth and get related to soul.
I should unmute myself first. Tien, that's like the quote of 2020, right? You're muted.
I need it. Give me it. So easy to
Thank
shut
you
people
so
down.
much. I mean, I had goosebumps. I was in tears.
Oh,
And
good.
this is somebody, I've taught psychology of gender in the academic circles, and there is no way, given your lived experience, there is no way any one of us who are cisgendered, there is no way we could do justice to that course. Those types of courses need people like you. So already immediately I am seeing implementable actions and implementable initiatives that we can put forth in the educational pipelines, in the corporate pipelines, of having the representation of the lived experience. And so, I mean, I'm completely blown away. I don't have questions right now because I have so much to process based on what you said. I'm probably going to be messaging you next week. Okay, can we go back to last week? Now I have questions.
That's awesome. We've done our bonding. We're good. Message me anytime, honey.
I mean, we're definitely going to continue this.
I love it.
So, thank you. Thank you so much. For anybody that has questions about Tien Neo Eamas's work, please, I encourage you to visit Tien's website, and I'm about to put that on the screen right now. And so please visit Tien's website, find out more about what Tien does. My mind's so blown right now. I can't.
I know. I condense a lot of information, and and you, for somebody who's already done some basic work, you're already like, ah! Can you imagine someone who's really new to this conversation? Oh, it's a lot of work, but it's all good. It's part of the process. I mean, we all start somewhere, yeah.
Absolutely.
So I'm always available, and I have little video clips and Insta stories, and just stay in touch. I'm easy to find, and I'm always talking about this because, as I said, my soul came down to teach this through the horribly rich and yucky life experience that I've had was perfect because I needed this lived experience so that I could really deliver this work in a very down to earth, non-academicized, simple English way so people can understand and really take on something for themselves and be able to look at life like, oh my God, I have lived under this veil of thinking I know who I am because I'm a woman. Oh my God, I have no idea. Who am I? And I love that. It's going to really shake people up, but it's perfect. You got to get shaken up for something powerful to emerge.
Absolutely. Yeah. So we do have a couple of questions, but we are running a little short on time. Yep. But one of the questions is, would you recommend the email signature with the preferred pronouns or not?
Well, that absolutely, if you listen to the whole conversation that I had about pronouns, at this point, it's your choice. I choose not to. Yeah. And it's kind of like, if it's necessary for some reason, do it. And if you feel aligned, because maybe for you as a cisgendered person, that is a way in for non-cis people to be able to locate you as somebody whom they could be out to, or they could feel safe with, or could take on as an ally. Right? So if you do have that statement, it's that little pride badge, right? Yeah, I'm with you, friend, come talk to me if you need to talk to, like that. So I would recommend, sure. And it's up to you. I want you to always be clear that you choose to do these, not out of you have to, because that's very inauthentic. I want you to actually look within first. Do that work. Actually check your gender. Do that work I asked you to do, the 3 points. Yeah. Look and check your gender and all that. Then start to choose what's the best way to begin being an ally, to begin educating, to begin standing for the change and taking the action that's necessary.
Yeah, and I'm sorry, I keep looking away. I'm taking notes, and it's hard to write and keep looking at the camera. So I'm like, well, I hope I'm not writing over. But yeah, and so the person who asked this, they said, beautiful answer, thank you. My personal beliefs mirror this conversation, and while I would prefer non-gendered language, I recognize that many I encounter don't even know of this option. So I think that's beautiful, and that's one of the things that really resonates with me as well personally. And you and I've had, are going to continue to have those conversations. The other question is, do you give advice, like outside of this forum, on raising kids with gender neutrality?
Absolutely.
I know the answer, but I want
Here's the thing. Everybody's kid is gender neutral. Remember, that's the new human. The 0 to 15s, everybody is.
Yeah.
So just take that as the norm, and what it is as an adult, you from a different generation. You need to upgrade. Your child is fine. Leave them alone. Or be willing to be the student.
Yeah.
Go learn from them.
Yeah.
Okay, so that's your real life experience right there. Learn from them.
Awesome.
Do not bring in your stuck view of gender into their reality, because they are so not that. And yes, I do teach courses. I offer coaching. I coach young people, children. I coach families. I coach parents who really committed to that. I do have a program that is gender conscious parenting. I offer these programs a couple times a year. So stay in touch. Just message me and we'll talk. Those dates aren't quite yet on the website. The website's getting all cleaned up right now. So just message me.
So for people to reach you, the best way is through your website, and then using the contact form, and then email.
Yeah, or just Google. I'm the only Tien Neo Eamas in the world. I've got a good enough Facebook, Instagram presence. I'm really easy to find, so I'll pop up. You put my name in there, you can find me. Yeah,
I can confirm that, folks, because I did the Google thing. And
yes,
Tien Neo Eamas is the only one.
It just pops right up. Yeah.
So, thank you so much. Thank you. I adore you, and you and I are going to be doing a lot of work together. So
I'm very excited.
I will be in touch with you.
Okay.
And for all of our listeners, thank you so much. Let's jump right into the next session. We're already 2 minutes over, so we will see you in the next session. And Tien, thank you so much.
You're welcome. Bye.
Bye.